Throughout the offseason, I have been hinting towards what I wanted to talk about most, and that is the NFL Draft. The NFL Draft is happening April 24th, and I cannot wait. I, last year, did kind of a mock draft where I did 10 of the first teams to draft, and then every other team would be on YouTube Shorts, and that worked out very well, and I really enjoyed doing that. But this time around, we are going to be doing an entire first round mock draft of each and every single pick for every single team. And I cannot wait for this. I've been super excited to do an episode like this because the draft is one of the few things I look forward to as a fan because we have such a long off season. So what we're going to be doing today is we're looking through every team. I'm going to try to give a logical and a realistic perspective and try to be as accurate as possible because even though there's not going to be another episode next week, there's going to be a live stream where I live react to the NFL draft and I want to see how accurate I am. We're going to go through every single team. We're going to go through every single pick. I'm going to make my case and I hope you guys are ready. And I want to know what you guys think in the comments below. If you think it's going to happen, if not. But I am Aaron. This is the Game Day Hour. Let's do this. With the first overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select Cam Ward, quarterback from Miami. So I think it's pretty obvious that most people have Cam Ward as the #1 quarterback above Shedeur Sanders. As a matter of fact, some people think that Shedeur Sanders is actually getting pushed a little further down in the draft. And the Titans have not had a franchise quarterback, in my opinion, as far back as Steve McNair. And because of this, there's no identity with the Titans. I do not trust Will Levis. And the reason why is as much as I like his heart, I don't think he is a franchise guy, and Cam Ward is. I remember when he switched over from Washington State to Miami, I watched him at Wazoo, and in Miami, way better. He was a whole different kind of player, and Miami, they should have been in the playoffs, but they dropped a few games here and there, and because of that, they ended up being knocked out, though I would have loved to see them in the college football playoffs. I think they would have been like number 12 or number 11 playing either Penn State or playing Texas, and because of that, I thought that would have been so cool to watch, but it is what it is. Kind of looking over his 2024 season, he had 4,313 passing yards, 39 total touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He had a 67.2% completion rate, which, by the way, is kind of a record at Miami. Mostly he set the record at Miami for most pass yards and touchdowns in a season, and he was the ACC Player of the Year. Didn't win the Heisman, but won his conference most valuable player. And because of that, he is highly regarded, and I think the Titans would go after a player like this because they already have a pretty good offense that surrounds him. You got Tony Pollard, Tyjae Spears in the back, you got Calvin Ridley, and Treylon Burks looks like he's probably going to take another step. And because of this, you got some places to go. Now, they have to address the O-line, they have to address the defense, but I think there's so much great defenders and great O-linemen in this draft. They will be able to take care of it. This was a first step, and you just could not miss out on this opportunity. I know they thought about Abdul Carter, but you got to take Cam Ward here. With the second overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Cleveland Browns select Abdul Carter, defensive end from Penn State. So this was a very tough one for the Browns because they desperately need a quarterback, that's without question. But if you know the Browns' track record with quarterbacks in the first round of the drafts, it doesn't tend to go well unless it's Baker Mayfield. But that doesn't happen very often. The issue is, with the Browns, they have no weapons to accommodate for a quarterback. I mean, Nick Chubb right now is on free agency. He's not even on the roster. And then your #1 wide receiver is Jerry Jeudy. I mean, this is not an offense that can take a quarterback. Tennessee's is a little closer to that, but with Cleveland, they need to put a better roster to surround a franchise quarterback. And right now they don't. However, the prospect alone of having Abdul Carter on one side and Myles Garrett on the other is enough for teams to shake. Just that would be the best edge rush duo in the entire NFL, and the Browns would have it. And this is in the same division as a tough Ravens, Steelers, who I can't wait till they get to the Steelers pick. That will be a fun one. And the Bengals, who have an incredible offense. That would be a game changer for Cleveland. And then they can address their quarterback situation later. I hear they're talking about the Louisville quarterback. I don't know enough about him. Maybe Jalen Milroe could be a good place for him, but I have no idea. Just to kind of get the perspective, I got to see Abdul Carter up close. When Penn State played Notre Dame in the semifinals, the first half, Carter was in the backfield every single play. It was terrifying. We found a way to take care of him, but it was so frustrating to deal with. Take a look at this. He has 68 total tackles in 2024, 12 sacks. That's huge. 2 forced fumbles. He was the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. Tough place to be, especially with offenses like Ohio State. Michigan has a lot of players going into the draft this year. We're going to talk about some of them in this first round. There is a lot of competition. And Oregon. I mean, this was a game-changing player. And Cleveland, I understand the need for a quarterback. You gotta go take this guy. I originally had Sanders going to Cleveland, but then when I thought about the idea of Carter and Garrett on the same defensive line, that's something I don't think Cleveland is going to regret doing if they go the route of Carter. But that's where I think they're going to do. With the 3rd overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the New York Giants select Shedeur Sanders, quarterback from Colorado. This one's going to turn some heads a little bit, and I don't blame anybody who thinks this is a crazy pick. I think that this is a tough situation because the Giants went in getting Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, and there's a lot more glaring issues. Winston and Wilson are not long-term deals, and you want to have a franchise quarterback. At least give Sanders a shot to just be on the bench for 1 year, to just learn a little bit behind Wilson, behind Winston, whoever starts the majority of the year, which will most likely be Wilson. And with that idea in mind, then the next year you can use him as your franchise guy. And it's not like he's going into a bad situation. Now, I'm not completely sold on the running back room. Everybody knows that ever since they got rid of Barkley, I don't trust the run game. But Malik Neighbors is going to take a ginormous step this year. Already in certain fantasy football projections, he's like the 5th best wide receiver. He's even above CeeDee Lamb. So it's not like you're going into a bad situation either. This is a good one. If you're the Giants, that's a great place to be right now. And I understand, you guys took a lot of time to go after quarterbacks in the offseason, especially a few weeks prior to me making this. And it's frustrating, but these guys will not be your franchise quarterbacks for more than 3 years. So you want to have a franchise quarterback ready to go. And that's why I think Sanders is going to go. But just to get an idea behind what the Giants would be drafting, 4,134 passing yards, 37 touchdowns. The 10 interceptions is one where I'm like, I don't know. But 74% completion rate. By the way, that's all those things, the passing yards, the touchdowns, the completion rate, they were all records at Colorado. All 3 were records for a single season. And he was the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year. So it's not like the Giants are getting something bad. I get it's going to be a frustrating move, but it's going, unless you are trying to be patient for that next quarterback. Right now, I don't even know who the big prospects going into next year are. Carson Beck? I mean, who else? I bet you guys are going to go into the comment section and tell me all the prospects, which, by the way, go ahead and do it. I'm kind of curious to see what the future is going to look like, and I want to see who I want to be looking out for in college football, so let me know. But Giants getting Sanders, I know it's a bit of a reach, but it's probably one that in the long run would be pretty good as long as they continue to take care of the offensive line needs and even putting some certain spots on the defense, which, by the way, they have a really good defense at the end of the day. So, yeah, Sanders to the Giants. With the 4th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the New England Patriots select Travis Hunter, wide receiver and cornerback from Colorado. There's no way Hunter drops any further than this, and New England would love to have this. So just to understand New England's history, you can make the argument that they struck diamond with Tom Brady, but they're not a team that's known for having great quarterbacks. And over these last few years since Tom Brady got Mac Jones, Cam Newton, and Drake May, he's just in his infant stages right now. And they made some really big headlines getting Stephon Diggs to be the #1 wide receiver. That was a great move. I didn't think about that. And it's a big risk, but it's one that I'm glad New England is taking. You will get to really see if Drake May takes that next step or not. And there's a lot of glaring issues. The O-line, I still don't like it. The D-line, which is generally really good, doesn't have a player that just jumps out to me and makes me excited. But what New England has always been known for is having a great secondary. Ty Law, one of New England's greatest players of all time, played in the first Super Bowl, played in that first dynasty, and they have always been known for having great secondaries. Stephon Gilmore, Malcolm Butler, they've had great secondary players, and that's exactly what Travis Hunter is. Hunter is an incredible defender, great cornerback, and at the same time, he's a dual threat. He's a wide receiver. He would be the second or the third wide receiver, and they could open up the playbook on offense. And Mike Vrabel, I look at Vrabel as one of those tough head coaches, one who would relish the idea of having a Travis Hunter. Just to get an idea, remember, Travis Hunter was the Heisman winner last year. This is what a Heisman winner looked like. 1,258 receiving yards and 15 touchdowns. On the same time, 32 tackles, 4 interceptions. That's Heisman gold, and that's something that I think New England would love to have. So there's no way Hunter goes any further. If New England is right there to get him, you gotta take him. And I don't think anybody from the Patriots would hate that pick. I think that would be a great... Does that mean he's going to be able to play both sides of the ball as great as he did in college? Who knows? But to be able to have that prospect is just something that New England fans would love, and this would be a great start to Vrabel's coaching career as the New England Patriots head coach. With the 5th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Mason Graham, defensive tackle from Michigan. Now, I had to go back and forth a little bit. The other person who I thought was Tyler Warren, the tight end from Penn State. Jacksonville can definitely use that. But where is Jacksonville's strongest features right now? It's the defensive end and that D-line situation. And Mason Graham being put on that D-line, along with Josh, I think it's Hines Allen, Josh Allen on defense. To have them there would be huge for Jacksonville. Jacksonville low-key has a really good defense on their hands. Now, the secondary, they've upgraded a little bit. I still think there's going to be some need of something much more. To have that disruption up front, someone down the middle like Mason Graham, is something Jacksonville would do very well to have. And I understand you want to get more weapons. I completely understand. And I've said they need to get Amari Cooper in the offseason to at least be a part of a wide receiver core, which is growing. And Gabe Davis, Brian Thomas Jr., that's a good wide receiver core. Travis Etienne still in the back. Lawrence is having himself... This is going to have to be a make-or-break year for Trevor Lawrence, and it's not like he's in an easy division at all. So, you ask me, Jacksonville could prosper having a really good defense, and putting Mason Graham there is big news. Let's look over something that Mason Graham did while he was at Michigan. So he had 45 tackles, 3.5 sacks, and a blocked kick. Those are some of the highlights that stood out, but he was the first team all Big Ten defensively, which is big news. And he's really high. He's the highest interior defensive lineman, and some people, question that, and it is what it is. But I just think that a piece like this for Jacksonville to have a dominant D-line would send shockwaves down their division. And especially, you want to take advantage of it right now. Indianapolis's O-line, even though it still has Quentin Nelson, is not as great as it used to be. Houston's O-line is trash. It's garbage. And Tennessee is in this rebuilding identity phase. This would be a nice time for Jacksonville to really ramp up that defense to have a force in the AFC South. With the 6th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Las Vegas Raiders select Ashton Jeanty, running back from Boise State. And as a Cowboys fan, this would break my heart, but at the same time, I do not put it past the Raiders to do something like this. Because the Raiders' number 1 running back right now is Raheem Mostert. They got Geno Smith. They have no wide receivers. So the only other idea for the Raiders at this time would be to get someone like McMillan from Arizona. But he's projected somewhere in the 15s, maybe even earlier than that. And Ashton Jeanty is the 5th best prospect. He's the number 1 running back. And his stats at Boise State were they're dominant. Take a look at this. Now, you can make the argument they need to fix their O-line, which is a reasonable thing to say. And obviously, there's a lot of O-linemen coming in this draft. A lot. When I was looking over a lot of the prospects, there were so many offensive linemen. And the Raiders will definitely find something. I believe they will. But get this, here's Genty's second, by the way, in the Heisman vote, 2,601 rushing yards. Let's just stop there. That basically means he was averaging over 150 yards per game. At times, getting close to 300 yards rushing in a game. And one of his, I would say his best performances was against Oregon. It's somewhere in the ballpark of 261 rushing yards. I would have to go looking back to the stats, but against what was the number one team for a good majority of the year, that's a big deal. And so you have that, 30 total touchdowns. That's 7 yards per carry, which NFL teams would relish that. He was the Mountain West Offensive Player of the Year, and again, he was second in Heisman. This is a prospect like no other, and I understand that the risk is nobody really likes taking running backs above the 10th pick anymore. But this is a guy who is a big exception to the rule, like a Saquon Barkley. I mean, this guy would be huge for the Raiders. Now, if the Raiders don't get him, you know who I'd want to see get him? I cannot see the Raiders wanting to do something like missing out on this opportunity. And the other team would be the Bears, who would probably want to get him, even though I don't think the Bears should try looking there right now. The Raiders getting Genty would be amazing for your offense. Still a lot of glaring holes, though. Obviously, the offensive line, the wide receiver room needs a big rework. But we'll see what they do, but I just don't think you can ignore this if you're the Raiders. With the 7th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the New York Jets select Tyler Warren, tight end from Penn State. Again, as a Notre Dame fan, I got to see this guy up close, and man, was he annoying. Tyler Warren he's such a fun player because a lot of his stats, of course, in receiving, he had a lot of rushing stats, and he even had some passing stats. They used him a lot in that Penn State offense, and he was a great talent. Why would the Jets need this? Well, here's the thing about the Jets. I thought they made a mistake not going after Brock Bowers last year. I think if you had Brock Bowers there, Aaron Rodgers would have had a lot more fun. But that didn't happen. Now you have Justin Fields. You have a good running back room, without question. Breece Hall's great, and they're looking to run a 3 running back system there, which I don't know how I feel about that, but you know, it is what it is. And then, of course, you have good wide receivers. Garrett Wilson, Allen Lazard is still there. So no need to frantically run to the wide receiver room. Your O-line, as though you still need some work there are some big pieces that are still developing, which is fine. And your defense, I mean, there's a lot of glaring holes, but it's still dominant. It's a great defense without question. And with new coaching, you would think they would go with defense because of Glenn's defensive coordinator, you know, him being a defensive mind. But I think that Fields needs as much as he's going to get. To have a 3-headed monster like Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, and Tyler Warren would be great for Justin Fields, and it'd be great for the Jets. Because look, the Patriots are still trying to figure out where they're at. Miami is going through a little bit of an identity crisis because we don't know what's going to happen with Tyreek Hill. And, well, I mean, Buffalo. That's really where your competition is. But give Justin Fields this weapon again. Before we move on to the next pick, let me just look over Tyler Warren for a second. 1,233 receiving yards, 8 touchdown catches, 4 touchdown rushes, 1 touchdown passing. He had Penn State's reception record of 104 in 2024. He is a vital piece to have, and he is the number 1 tight end going into here. He's a top 10 pick. I think the Jets would really want a player like this. Don't skip out on this idea. If Tyler Warren is there in New York, get Justin Fields that extra weapon, and you can do a lot more with him in the offense. With the 8th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Carolina Panthers select Jalen Walker, defensive end from Georgia. The Panthers got so lucky with Bryce Young last year. I mean, it looked like that was turning out to be one of the bigger busts of the year, but I think he saved himself just a little bit, so the offense has some leeway. The running back room still has a ways to go. If Jonathan Brooks is going to be that guy for the future, that would be good. Wide receiver room, I mean, Xavier Legette is still trying to impose himself. So number 1, you still have Adam Thielen, so the wide receiver position is not a big need. The tight end position, it's still a question mark, but then Tyler Warren just went. Right now, the Panthers, some of their biggest bright spots is in the linebacker core, the D-line, the secondary has some pieces. It still needs a lot of work there, but to have someone like Jalen Walker, first of all, this is Georgia. It's Georgia. They breed defenders. And this is no exception. Jalen Walker is a huge addition to any defense, and I think Carolina would love this. Just to put into perspective, Jalen Walker, let's take a look. He had 60 tackles last year, 6.5 sacks. He won the Butkus Award, which is big defensive award for college, second team All-SEC. This is a guy who some people do think he's projected a little too high, but I think based on his projection right here and Carolina's needs and where they can see an identity, this makes a lot of sense. The Panthers, they have a good defense. Now, do they have everything to put it together? I think this guy would be a step in that direction. I don't think he would put everything together. There are so many edge rushers coming into this draft that are first rounders, and Carolina can at least get their hands on what I believe is the second best. I don't think you can ignore this. With the 9th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select Will Johnson, cornerback from Michigan. So similar to the ideology of New England always having a strong secondary, I see that with New Orleans as well. Now, does this solve New Orleans' big issue, which I would say is the future at the quarterback position? No. And some people think Shedeur Sanders is going to be a Saint. I don't think he will. If he is, that'd be a great move for them, but I think right now New Orleans is banking on having a really good defense at hand, and they've always had a great front and a great secondary. Obviously, some pieces have moved here and there. Will Johnson is somebody I think that fits the New Orleans culture of having a really dominant secondary that can compete in a division with a Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, compete in a division with a Thielen and a Leggett, in a division with a Drake London, a Kyle Pitts. You get my point. There are some pretty star-studded receivers within this division that Will Johnson could do a really good job at taking care of. And I just look at the secondary and I'm like, this is New Orleans' identity for a long time. Let's get back to it. What did he do? Well, first of all, he didn't play every single game. He played 6 games, but in 6 games he had 14 tackles, 2 interceptions, both leading to touchdown. And during the college football playoffs, so I'm guessing this is the season prior, what it says is he won MVP. Now, I looked that up. I'm kind of trying to figure out if they made a mistake with that, or I looked in a few places. It says that, so fact check me if I'm wrong. But having the MVP in the college football playoff championship is kind of that's a big deal. And so the way I view it, Saints' identity has always been having a really dominant defense, a great secondary to go along with it. I don't see why this wouldn't make any sense. I think this would be a perfect pick for New Orleans, personally. With the 10th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Chicago Bears select Armand Membois, offensive tackle from Missouri. So I've been talking this early part of the episode about how there's going to be a lot of offensive linemen, and there are like 3 really good ones that tend to be middle pack, and this is probably the better of all. So just to understand, the Bears could be tempted to get Ashton Jeanty. But what was the most glaring issue with the Bears last year on offense? It wasn't Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams has some things he has to learn, but that wasn't the issue. Not the wide receiver core. I love the wide receiver core. I think Cole Kmet's fine. I think that having DeAndre Swift is okay. It's the offensive line that was the issue. Because I don't know. Caleb Williams, holding the ball too long, defenses relish that. But when he's running for his life, that's not a good thing. And a lot of times when I'm watching the Bears last year, I'm like, man, you get this guy a better O-line, and the Bears could actually be going somewhere with this. Here comes Armand. And I think that you have to work on the O-line. So far, the Bears have done a really good job. They got Joe Thuney from the Chiefs earlier in the year. So I believe that they are taking that into priority. And then the Bears on defense, there's some places I'd like to touch upon on the defensive side, but they had a pretty good defense. It fell apart, but early on you saw that the Bears defense was one of their strong suits. With his time on the offensive line, Missouri last year had 2,926 passing yards, 2,138 rushing yards, and he's 6'4", 332 pounds. It's the force of nature, and I think the Bears would love to have something like this. Is it the most appealing pick in the world? No, it's not like getting a superstar running back or a superstar wide receiver, but it's a very necessary piece to have in order to continue to develop Caleb Williams, and Ben Johnson knows that. Ben Johnson's an offensive mind. He will understand this better than anybody else. This would be a very smart pick. But then again, you can rotate with a couple of offensive linemen who are all up there. There's 3 in total, him plus 2 others. This would be a pretty good pick for the Bears, and I think it's the more logical pick overall. With the 11th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the San Francisco 49ers select Will Campbell, offensive tackle from LSU. So, understanding the offensive mind that is Kyle Shanahan, you have to understand this. Brock Purdy is a hot and cold quarterback. He is only great when he has all the pieces around him. A great O-line, great wide receivers, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle. But what happens when he's missing a vital piece, like a Trent Williams? Well, then he starts to play below average. This is where the 49ers need to take advantage because you just lost your receiver, Deebo Samuel. You're losing pieces in the secondary, which will need to be addressed, of course. But if I'm the 49ers, I'm thinking, how can I get the most out of my quarterback who I'm trying to figure out if I want to make a big deal with? You need to have proper protection. Imagine having Trent Williams and this guy both as your blindside blockers. That would be big. And of course, we can continuously keep trying to fix the middle of the O-line as well. I think there's a lot of places to fix on the 49ers offensive line. But just to put in perspective, first of all, he played 866 total snaps. This guy is, he's a trooper. He's a warrior. He's 6'6", 319 pounds. This is a big guy. And I think that they got to take advantage of this. You got to give Brock Purdy the proper protection because you don't have to immediately go for a wide receiver. You still have Ayuk there. And obviously, you still have George Kittle. Christian McCaffrey should be healthy, theoretically, going into the season. And both him and Brock Purdy would love to have this. So I think the 49ers, it's not a flashy pick, and obviously you got to work on that defense. The defense is starting to fall apart. They're losing players left and right. This is important if you're the 49ers, to be sure that you can maximize Brock Purdy. The defense, I think that they'll find a way to recover. So if I'm the 49ers, make this move. With the 12th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Dallas Cowboys select Tyra McMillan, wide receiver from Arizona. If it's not going to be Ashton, where is it going to be? Obviously, there's a lot of work that needs to be done on the O-line. We don't have a great offensive line. It's one of the worst that I've ever seen as a Cowboys fan in a long while. But then I look at our weaponry and what Dak Prescott has. And, you kind of made some moves in the running back room, getting Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders. Those were okay moves. Obviously, there's not a definitive bell cow, but I think that overall, Dak Prescott, one of the glaring issues is look at his wide receiver room. Your second best player, what is it? Corbin, Turpin, CeeDee Lamb's your only number 1 wide receiver, and you're in an opportunity to get a guy who, when I watch his tapes, as a Cowboys fan, while it's not a definitive comparison, it's giving Dez Bryant vibes, and I miss those days. And to have him, a deep threat, going up, kind of Moss kind of player, going up and just taking care of business, winning the one-on-one battles. That's something that Dak Prescott could use big time. And his stats at Arizona are they're kind of mind-blowing when you put them in perspective. Last year he had 1,319 receiving yards, 8 touchdowns, but look at this, 15.7 yards per carry. He's a deep threat package that Dak Prescott has not been great with the deep threat. And I think you need a deep threat weapon. CeeDee Lamb's a really good Swiss Army knife kind of player. He can be really good in the deep threat, really good in midsection. Obviously, he's a great slot player. But to have somebody who is a legitimate deep threat like McMillan on your team, I don't see how you can ignore that. There's still glaring issues, but again, with the offensive line, the Cowboys generally do very well in the draft with offensive linemen, even if it's deep down the line. So I think that the McMillan pick is a great place to help Dak Prescott, especially if you're going to keep going in the long run with him, get him that proper weapon. Now, I say that, if Ashton Genty's still there, obviously the Cowboys got to probably pull the trigger. And defensively, they've actually worked on the defense pretty well. So this is really just the best place the Cowboys can go with this. With the 13th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Miami Dolphins select Kelvin Banks Jr., offensive tackle from Texas. This basically wraps up the three big offensive linemen, offensive tackles that I was alluding to with Armand Memois. Kelvin Banks is a freak of nature at Texas, a great player. He was very vital for the pass attack that Quinn Ewers brought, and Texas' offense strived big time last year. Obviously, they could have done better, and I thought they should have done better, which is just kind of mind blowing to think about. But Kelvin Banks at Texas was a big deal, and when I look at the Miami Dolphins, Tua is an injury machine, mostly with concussions. It looks like Tyreek Hill's on his way out, but you still have Jalen Waddle. Your running back room now, basically Devon Achane's going to be that bell cow running back, and he's already projected as a top 10 running back in this league so far. Defensively, yeah, there's a lot of places you can fix. Defensive line, linebacker, basically the whole defense needs it needs pieces here and there. Jalen Ramsey's still there, but you still need a pretty good secondary. I just think that at this time, the best prospect for Miami's use would be someone like Kelvin Banks. And just kind of put in perspective, at 935 snaps, 537 from the pass, 397 from the rush, and he only allowed 1 sack throughout that entire 2024 campaign. I did see some things about like injury in there, so that'll take care of itself. But anyways, Kelvin Banks is a solid offensive tackle that Miami, they got to have a better offensive line, especially if they're going to lean on the run. Because that's what it looks like. If Tyreek Hill is on his way out, and if he stays, then we're back to the balanced pass attack, rush attack. But if he leaves, I think that they're going to lean a little more heavily on the run. You'd want a guy like this. And even if they don't heavily rely on the run, you need to protect Tua one way or the other. Here's your guy. With the 14th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Indianapolis Colts select Colston Loveland, tight end from Michigan. It's a head-turning pick. When I was looking at the prospects in the draft grades, first of all, he has a 91 overall in draft grade, which is very, very good. And you don't often see tight ends go as frequently as this draft looks like it's about to go that way. But look at Indianapolis's offense for a second. Now, Anthony Richardson is on the ropes because he showed display in his second year of qualities that most NFL teams look at, and it was pretty scary. And his wide receiver core, Michael Pittman, is the number one wide receiver, but I think that overall, that's not good enough. Their tight end room is non-existent. And I think that one thing I always loved about young players, young quarterbacks, is when they have a really good tight end on their hand. And then here comes this guy. Rated high enough to be drafted at this position, which is why I think Indianapolis should pull the trigger. But Loveland, let's take a look at his stats. 582 receiving yards, 5 touchdowns, 10.4 yards per catch. First team all Big Ten. First of all, the frequency of Michigan players, that's impressive. If you're a Wolverine fan, you're enjoying all of this. But when I take a look at certain prospects and how they look at the NFL draft, the professionals out there, a lot of people in Indianapolis believe that the tight end position is something that's going to be eyed pretty heavily. And I agree too, if you understand that young quarterbacks having a good security blanket is a nice thing to have. And right now, they don't have that. Anthony Richardson, unfortunately, doesn't have that kind of talent at that position. This would be a really good pick, and I think they need to heavily look at taking this guy if he's there, assuming that Warren is gone, which he should be by then, and there's not that many other glaring issues. Again, their O-line's slowly looking bad, but they still have some very strong pieces there. And then you look at their defense. Yeah, you got to take care of that, the front core, including the linebacker core. I don't like it. But overall, their secondary looks a lot better since the start of free agency. And I believe that this would be a nice pick. With the 15th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Atlanta Falcons select Michael Williams, defensive end from Georgia. Again, another edge rusher from Georgia. Georgia is the defensive college out there. There's nobody who does it better than the Bulldogs. And this would be something Atlanta needs big time. Look, the Falcons' offense, I think, is pretty set. Obviously, they're taking a risk with their 8th overall pick last year in Penix. But he has so much around him. First of all, Bijan Robinson, big deal. Drake London had a better year. I think Kyle Pitts kind of saved himself for a few more years. He has good weapons around him overall. The O-line can continue to improve, as all O-lines can, but the Falcons, it's always been the defense that's been the issue. The secondary looked a lot better last year. It looks like they gained good names at the linebacker core. It's that defensive line that, even though there's some good names up there, you gotta have a dominant presence, and this is Michael Williams. 15 tackles, 5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. He is a force of nature up front for Georgia. I don't think you can miss out on this, and it's in the same state. I mean, Michael Williams plays at the Falcon Stadium a few times throughout last year, so it would be just a natural homecoming from. And I don't see why Atlanta should take this route. I mean, it's the defense that's always been the Falcons' Achilles heel. So if they can take care of that, they'll be good to go for next year. With the 16th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Arizona Cardinals select James Pierce Jr., defensive end from Tennessee. It's hard to tell, where do the Falcons go with the first overall pick? Is it another wide receiver to help out with Kyler Murray? I have no idea. Offensive line will always need to have some work done, as we've talked about already. But it's that defensive line that I think could be a lot better, because they do have a pretty good secondary. I mean, Budda Baker runs it very well, but they don't have great presence up front, at least from when I was looking at them last year. I didn't like what I saw, and James Pierce would be the next in line as a big edge rusher to be drafted. So let's take a look. 23 tackles, 7.5 sacks, which is crazy, 1 forced fumble. He was first team all SEC. Big deal. And if you're the Cardinals, the way I look at it is that you want to have some kind of defensive presence, and right now the offense is taking care of itself. It looks like Kyler Murray is going to be staying. It looks like he saved his job for a few more years, a few more seasons. You have Marvin Harrison, which right now it's iffy, but I don't know. Maybe. He could have a really good sophomore year. James Conner, obviously, being fine with the Arizona Cardinals running back room. I think that's okay. And then the tight end position, I mean, McBride got a big deal. No need to fix anything there. It's the defensive side of the ball. And I think Tennessee's James Pierce would be a great addition for an Arizona defense which needs to do better at pressuring the quarterback. With the 17th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Cincinnati Bengals select Jahdae Barron, cornerback from Texas. Again, another Texas person coming off the board relatively early in the first round. The thing about the Bengals is, what do they need to really improve on offense besides that O-line? And they've already made some slight improvements here and there. Joe Burrow he's not going anywhere. And you lock down Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. It was a big deal for the offense. And they are going to have a high-powered offense for the unseeable future. If they can manage to keep Hendrickson on the defensive side, that'd be big. However, that secondary was really disappointing last year. I mean, one of the games they got exposed big time was against Washington Monday night. And I think a lot of people remember that game. That was Jaden Daniels' wake-up call to the NFL, where people realized this guy is going to be a big deal. And he ended up being that for the entirety of the season, even going into the playoffs. Right now, the Bengals secondary is probably their weakest state. And having a player like Barron, who, as far as statistics goes at Texas, with 67 tackles, 1 sack, and 5 interceptions, this is a big deal if you are the Bengals, to get some kind of lockdown defender on the edge. And if you're not going to get that, I think that you're going to continue to run in the same woes. Teams are just going to pass all over you. You need someone like this. Go get Jahdae. With the 18th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Seattle Seahawks select Jahad Campbell, linebacker from Alabama. So we were talking a little bit about the Saints being a team that has always had pretty good secondary, and same as the Patriots. And while the Seahawks are the same way, I think the Seahawks secondary is actually looking great. It's very young, and I think it's going to have a lot of potential next year. But the other place is the linebacker core. The linebacker core has always been a very important spot for Seattle's defense over the years, and When you look at the offense, you're going to have to run with Sam Darnold. Obviously, I think they're going to get a quarterback later in the draft. And then their wide receiver room is great. They got Cooper Kupp. Obviously, Jackson Smith-Jigba, he's going to be take another step forward, hopefully. And they definitely need it. The running back room is fine. The offensive line needs a lot of work, but Seattle's never been known to have that great of an offensive line, at least from what I've seen. They've had a very cheap one over the years. The defense up front could use some work overall, and the linebacker core has always been a very important spot for the Seahawks, and I don't think that's any exception in this draft. They should go after a linebacker, and what do you have with Jahad Campbell? You have 117 tackles, 5 sacks, 1 interception, 2 forced fumble. Freak of nature. Seattle can really use someone like that. That mid presence in the defense is something that I think is very important if you are Seattle, and again, it's just that's really where it's always been. The linebacker room for Seattle's always been one that has been held in high regards, and this is a player that I think would do a really good job with the Seahawks. With the 19th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Shamar Stewart, defensive end from Texas A&M. So what have the Buccaneers accomplished so far? The Buccaneers have accomplished keeping their wide receiver room, giving Baker a pretty good contract, obviously. The O-line has always been one that I think is above average in many ways. You can look at the tight end position, but by now the 2 biggest tight ends in the draft are gone, so I don't think you want to reach for that. So let's go over to the defensive side of the ball. You have a really good secondary. Linebacker core, I believe, is very solid. It's that defensive line that I think can use some talent, and this is where Shamar Stewart comes in. Now, some people talk about Stewart's position in the draft, and I don't blame them. I think, look at the stats. You have 31 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and those stats are not that appealing, but he has so much upside. So much that the Buccaneers, this is not a huge risk to take a guy like this if you're Tampa Bay. It's the D-line that is probably the most questioned position when I look at the entire Buccaneers offense. I don't have many other questions about any other position. The running back room with Bucky Irving is one that is, so many Buccaneer fans love Bucky Irving, and they believe that that offense is going to run through him a lot. You've got your 2 main wide receivers, one that constantly gets 1,000 yards a year, Mike Evans. It's just this part of the defense that I would like to take a closer look at, and I think that this would be a pretty good spot to fill. With the 20th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Denver Broncos select Omarion Hampton, running back from North Carolina. I would say that not a lot of big-name running backs early on. Obviously, Ashton Genty he's at the top of it all, and then after that, it trickles down to roughly around the same average. And then here comes the Broncos, who lost Javonte Williams over the offseason to the Cowboys, and Bo Nix has basically one big name receiver, in my opinion, Cortland Sutton. The tight end position is questionable, to say the least. The O-line, I think, is a lot better than people give it credit for, but there's obviously still work to be done there. The running back room for Denver, I think, is one that's in a glaring hole. That and the secondary, outside of Patrick Surtain, I would like to see a lot of work there. Overall, here is a player who at North Carolina put up some ridiculous stats looking like this: 1,660 rushing yards, 17 total touchdowns, 373 receiving yards. That's big news for somebody who needs to develop even quicker, Bo Nix. Because you have 2 quarterbacks that are set in stone right now that had really good rookie campaigns. Jaden Daniels for Washington and Bo Nix for Denver. Right now, I don't like the running back room that Bo Nix has to work with, especially if you're going to play against teams, in their division. Kansas City's always had a really good secondary. The Chargers got some big names back there, and the Raiders are probably going to stack up there as well. So you need somebody who's going to take a load off of the passing game, and this is where this guy comes in. I would hope that the Broncos would really and highly consider picking Omarion Hampton. With the 21st overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Jackson Dart, quarterback from Ole Miss. Absolutely, I think Pittsburgh's pulling the trigger here. They may even try to draft up. Right now, as we speak, there has not been a decision on Aaron Rodgers. I don't know what's happening there. And I think that Jackson Dart, being a position where he's like late first round and where Pittsburgh's at right now, they can definitely take him, even if they do get Aaron Rodgers. I would say you got to pull the trigger here. And here's why. Take a look. Jackson Dart, 4,279 passing yards, which I'm pretty sure was significantly more, which was more than Shedeur Sanders. He also had 29 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He's not somebody who turns the ball over very often. 69.3% completion rate, 495 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. He has a dual threat capability. And Pittsburgh, since Ben Roethlisberger has gone, what does it look like? I mean, you tried the Russell Wilson, Justin Fields strategy. We all thought Fields would be the future, and y'all bailed on those plans early. And right now, their quarterback room, as we speak, Mason Rudolph is the #1 quarterback. How do you make sense of that? Jackson Dart to Pittsburgh. That is such that I don't see how Pittsburgh is not in the front running to get someone like this. I looked at some reports where there were other teams that could potentially try to go after a quarterback like Jackson Dart, and I'm sitting here just like, no, you cannot pass up on this opportunity, even if you get Aaron Rodgers. He's going to be there for long. You want to have a future quarterback and probably take a risk? I say Pittsburgh does it right here with Dart. With the 22nd overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Los Angeles Chargers select Mike Green, defensive end from Marshall. A little bit of a lower division, obviously, but stats just jump off. 84 tackles, 17 sacks, which is a Sun Belt record, 3 forced fumbles, Sun Belt Conference Player of the Year is what the Chargers could go after. And why do I say the defensive end position? Because you lost Joey Bosa. And where else you're going to go with this? The linebacker room, you still have Khalil Mack there. Secondary, Derwin James is there. You want to go to offense for a second? You're not changing the quarterback position, neither the running back position. Just got Najee Harris. Wide receiver room is very young and still development. Maybe you get a wide receiver later down the line. Tight end position, you just picked up Tyler Conklin from the New York Jets. Where do you go with this offensive line? Definitely not going for offensive tackles. You have really good outside protection, and the top offensive guard is like ranked in the 30s. So right now, the glaring hole is at the defensive end position. I did not like the departure of Joey Bosa, and so I think that the Chargers need to fill that gap, and Mike Green is right there. I don't see how you take a risk here and not go after a guy like that. You got to do this. Mike Green's a good player who I think the Chargers would do well to draft the 22nd pick. With the 23rd overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Green Bay Packers select Derek Harmon, defensive tackle from Oregon. Now, one of the big complaints from Packers fans comes from the fact that the draft always tends to move towards the defense, and the defense doesn't ever really have main progress. And right now, if you look at the offensive position, I would love to see a wide receiver draft, but I don't think the Packers are going to do it. They almost never do it. Quarterback room is fine. Running back room is fine. Tight end position is in development. And the O-line, I mean, it has some good names, but it's still going to have some development there. You go to look on the defensive side, and Jair Alexander is like the best defender they have in the secondary. But when I look up front in the defensive line, I'm not all too impressed. And I think that interiorly, you need to have some progress be made. Right now, Derek Harmon is in that position. And let's see. Harmon last year, 40 tackles, 5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles with Oregon. I think that overall, he is a great prospect for Green Bay to have. You got to have better pressure up front if you're the Packers, especially if you want the secondary to succeed. I think that to have you're in a very tough position. The Lions have a pretty good O-line, and obviously their offense is high powered. Minnesota could be on the brink of big change, potentially being a Super Bowl contending team. And you don't have to worry about the Bears right now. They're still in their development stages, but to have somebody interiorly as good as Derek Harmon right there to help the secondary out, the Packers should take that risk. With the 24th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Minnesota Vikings select Nick Emmanwori, safety from South Carolina. Where do the Vikings have to go in the draft? I mean, you're probably going to get a quarterback later down the line, just so you can have a backup to J.J. McCarthy, who I believe is the future. Running back room is fine with Aaron Jones. You'll probably put some work there later down the draft, maybe. You also have an incredible wide receiver room, and TJ Hawkinson. There's no need to get him any weapons, and the O-line looks very, very good. Go to the defense. I like the defensive line a lot. The one place of question is the safety position, and this is where I want to see them make their pick. So, what did Nick do last year? He had 88 tackles, 4 interceptions, 2 of them that went for touchdowns. So, putting him back there with Harrison, big move. I think that the Vikings are so close to being Super Bowl contenders. If J.J. McCarthy actually plays like a franchise quarterback, the Vikings are in for, I guess, the next 5 to 7 years of dominance in what is a very difficult division. The Lions and the Packers just being right there, and the Bears could potentially make that change, but that's remained to be seen. This is a good spot for Nick to go. The safety position for Minnesota is, I wouldn't say a glaring issue, but it's one that could definitely take up a first pick. With the 25th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Houston Texans select Walter Nolen, defensive tackle from Ole Miss. This is a pick that I think is going to bother a lot of Texan fans because of the glaring issue of the offensive line. I look kind of downwards, especially at the position where you can draft more linemen. It's a little bit of reach as far as their average goes, their overall grade. I think that at this position, this is where Walter Nolen is ranked like 25, 26 in this, I guess, area. And I look at the defensive line of the Houston Texans. Their edge rushers are so good. Put Walter Nolen in there, and Houston has one of the most prominent defensive lines in all of sports. And you go on the offensive side, the one glaring spot of anything is that O-line. Outside of that, go to the defensive spot. You can really bolster up the defensive line, and that's why I think they'll go after Nolen. Otherwise, they will try to find an offensive tackle. I just think that this is an area that the Texans could really bank on, to have somebody like Nolen, who last year had 48 tackles, 6.5 sacks, was first team all SEC. Most people would be frustrated because they need an O-line. I mean, come on. There's an opportunity to build one of the most dominant fronts in all of sports right now in the NFL because their defense is on the rise. Why not? I take the bait. I go after Walter Nolen. With the 26th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Los Angeles Rams select Donovan Ezaraku, defensive end from Boston College. I definitely did not look up how to pronounce his last name. That's a tough last name to pronounce. Anyways, the Rams offensively, they don't really need to do much except for the O-line. But then again, that's basically every other team. Where I see the biggest issue is they have a prominent spot at the linebacker position. They have a pretty good secondary. That defensive line, though, is hot garbage. It needs a lot of rework. And this is the next best edge rusher there is. And at Boston College, statistics, he, overall, had 80 tackles and 16.5 sacks, an ACC Defensive Player of the Year. So the Rams could definitely use someone like this because really their biggest issue is defensively. How can they really compete and go to Super Bowl with that bad issue up front? And obviously later down the draft, they're probably going to look at the quarterback. They're probably going to go looking for more linebackers or safeties and cornerbacks. But right now, you got to fix that D-line, and that's the best piece available at that very point. The Baltimore Ravens had traded the 27th overall pick to the Kansas City Chiefs. With the 27th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Kansas City Chiefs select Josh Simmons, offensive tackle from Ohio State. This is a no-brainer pick if you're the Chiefs. Where is the biggest issue? It's the offensive line. That's what hurts y'all in the Super Bowl, without question. Great quarterback, good running back room, pretty good wide receiver room. Travis Kelce staying another year. You go on the defense, incredible interior defensive talent. Chris Jones is there, a pretty good linebacker core, and a pretty good secondary. Where's the glaring issue? It's the offensive line. And if they can fix that issue, because that is going to take precedence over anything else the Chiefs do throughout the entire offseason. And what better than to go after an offensive tackle and move on from number 74? This is where Josh Simmons is. I don't have many stats on Simmons, but what I do have, 6'5", 317 pounds. Something other than number 74 right now would be big. Because the issue with the Chiefs is that they don't have great O-linemen at all. And a team like the Eagles, who didn't blitz at all throughout the entire Super Bowl, got back there a lot. Because of this, I am going to have to just say that the Chiefs might have to take the move of trading up just to get someone like Josh Simmons. Because I cannot see any other scenario where they go after any other piece but an offensive tackle, and he's the next best thing. You don't want to lose that. With the 28th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Maxwell Hairston, cornerback from Kentucky. Secondary-wise, the Lions are trending in a pretty good direction, but they still need to have some work in the secondary. And a reason why I say this, offensively, their O-line is not a glaring issue, and every other spot is just fine. Now, some people think they should go after D-linemen, most likely because with the injury that happened last year to Hutchinson, you probably want to have somebody else to be up there. But the secondary, I look at it, and there's some nice pieces there, but there's a lot more work that can be done. And of all the defenders, Hairston's in a really good spot to be drafted in that position. And the Lions, obviously, they took secondary last year in the first round. I think they go again. I think you do it again. And let's see, what did Hairston do last year? 19 tackles, 1 reception, which led to a touchdown, 2 forced fumbles. He is a very physical cornerback that they can really use at Detroit. Again, you can go defensive line if you want. When I look in that position, I don't see many other the defensive linemen that need to be drafted just yet, but the secondary is actually a little more prominent in this spot. So I would say go after the cornerback position. He's the best available. With the 29th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Washington Commanders select Azare Thomas, cornerback from Florida State. You can go back and forth between this and Hairston. I think that Detroit will take Hairston, and then Washington will, in return, will take Azare. And the reason why I say this is because they took care of the wide receiver position big time early on in the offseason. They have made some key moves to their O-line, and Dan Quinn's a defensive mind. Secondary-wise, they could definitely do better, and I think this is where you have a really good prospect in getting Azare. Let's take a look. He's not one for the sacks, and I'm not seeing much with interceptions, but he has 29 tackles, 1 forced fumble. He has 0.5 sacks. Those are not they're not eye-popping statistics, but it is what it is. Washington is looking to have a defensive mind, and they have to, take advantage of the fact that Jaden Daniels still on a rookie contract and work on that defense. And the defense was trending in the right direction, but you saw what happened against the Eagles in the NFC Championship game. And right now, I think that if there's any issue that Washington has, it's not at the linebacker core. They have some pretty good linebackers. They still have a pretty strong defensive front, but the secondary is in question, in my opinion. And I think that even though they have some good pieces there, let's pick up Thomas and let's see what happens. With the 30th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Buffalo Bills select Matthew Golden, wide receiver from Texas. Again, this is another no-brainer move. You just signed Josh Allen to a big extension. 6 years, $330 million. Running back room is fine. Wide receiver room is in question. If Amari Cooper is leaving, I don't like the fact that Shakir is the number 1 wide receiver. He's good, but I don't think he's number 1 capability. And maybe Keon Coleman takes that next step forward, but Right now, for me, Matthew Golden is projected to be the 25th best player in the draft, second best wide receiver. Only one wide receiver is gone so far, and that's McMillan. Golden for the Buffalo Bills is a big deal. Josh Allen needs as many weapons as he can get, and this is the next best thing. And the fact that he drops this low would be it would be a big deal for Buffalo, because otherwise they're going after defense in some capacity. But I don't think they can skip over Golden if they want Josh Allen to continue to have his production go up and up and maybe make that push to the Super Bowl. I think this is a good spot to go. I mean, take a look at some of these stats. You got 987 receiving yards, 9 touchdowns, 17 yards per catch, which I'm pretty sure is more than McMillan, who had 15.7. So yeah, a deep threat for Josh Allen would be nice, and Matthew Golden fits that role pretty well. With the 31st pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Baltimore Ravens select Tyler Booker, offensive guard from Alabama. So you notice I've said a few offensive linemen, but I have not said an offensive guard or a center. And that's because they're not projected really high. I mean, even Tyler Booker is still below 32, which I'm kind of surprised, but it is what it is. I mean, look in the offensive line for the Ravens. They have a great center. They have pretty good outside defense. It's the offensive guard position, which it's a little questionable, and I think that could be a big problem, especially with Derrick Henry being back there, Lamar Jackson. I think interior offensive lineman is something that the Ravens could use, and it falls at a pretty good position, which is why they can make this trade back from the Kansas City Chiefs, because Chiefs are not going after an offensive guard. They're going after an offensive tackle, and right now I don't think the Ravens need that. And then you can go on the defensive side. There's going to be a lot more talent in the draft defensively that they'll get their hands on. But right now, I think that big improvement can be in the interior offensive line outside the center position. And this is where Tyler Booker plays in. I mean, let's take a look. He allowed no sacks, 715 snaps. That's a big deal. And I think that the Ravens could really use someone like that, especially when you got King Henry back there and Jackson. Yeah, that would be a pretty good move for the Ravens. And with the 32nd pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Philadelphia Eagles select Malachi Starks, safety from Georgia. Where do you want the Eagles to go? They don't need wide receivers. They don't need a quarterback. They don't need a running back. They don't need a tight end. Their O-line can definitely use some work, but it is solid. They still have one of the better O-lines in all of football. You go on the defensive side, the defensive line is strong. Linebacker core, also very strong. The cornerback situation, great. Quinion Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, big moves. But they lost a lot from further beyond. The safety position, I mean, the secondary took a big hit. Darius Slay is gone. Garner Johnson's gone. Brad Berry is gone. They took a lot of hits back there. If any position needs to have a rework, it'd be there. And because I trust Mitchell and DeJean a lot, I'm going to take it back to the safety position. And oh, hold on. Wait. Hold on. It's a Georgia player again. The Eagles is becoming the Georgia Bulldogs in a way. And that's why I also have them going there. And plus, he was the highest rated safety close to the position, which would be a little bit of a stretch, but still, I think that this would be a good move for the Eagles to constantly have a great secondary on hand. And with Malachi Starks, 52 tackles and interception last year is what I was able to jot down, and that's pretty good. I think that the Eagles overall, I mean, they're not going to skip out on a Georgia player like that. Number one. Number two, the safety position is the only glaring issue I see on the defense. The linebacker room could use some work, but I don't know. I think that having someone like Malachi would be great. It's strong and fits the Eagles culture. And that'll do it for today's episode. Again, it took some time to make this episode. I mean, looking at the recording, I'm already 80 minutes in. So it's going to be, I want to have a lot of time to do this. Obviously, this is a week prior to when this episode's supposed to come out, so trades could happen here and there. Hope not, but it is what it is. I think that these players would be great on their respective teams, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. And if you did, please leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe. Thank you for all the support. As a matter of fact, as I'm speaking, we're inching closer to having this channel reach over 100,000 views, which would just be amazing. So I thank you guys so much. And then, of course, from a week from this video will be the NFL Draft. I won't be having an episode coming out that week, but I am going to live stream. Therefore, I hope you guys are excited. yeah, I mean, I did this last year. I had fun doing it. And now we're going to do it again. Thank you guys for watching this video. I will see you in the next one. And because this is the draft episode, you know fantasy football is on its way. So I hope you guys are excited for the fantasy offseason portion of my channel and podcast. Hope you guys have a great day. Take care. And I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.